Hello, and welcome to Geeks Assembled. This is my newsreader's stance. We are today talking about a 1985 film by Terry Gilliam. It is Brazil, starring Jonathan Pryce, Bob Hoskins, a little-known actor called Robert De Niro. What do we make of this movie? We know Terry Gilliam, when he makes movies, he enters his own imagination and drags ideas out of his head and puts them across the screen. And a lot of people sometimes don't get what he's trying to say. But that's what I like about Terry Gilliam. You don't know what to expect from his movies. So we'll go around this group of, what do we call them? Geeks? Do we call them geeks? We'll call them geeks. We'll go to Ethan. What do you make of Brazil?
Absolutely bloody love this movie. I love it. It was great. I had a blast watching this because anything Terry Gilliam touches is gold. I grew up with and love Monty Python at a very young age, which I think explains my warped mind, I think. But I'll get back to that. So the first time I saw this, I think, was the early 90s. I had seen the films I'd seen the most, because this is part of a trilogy called the Trilogy of Imagination. You have the first film, which is The Time Bandits, another movie I love, which is The Mind of a Child, Imagination of a Child. This one, Imagination of a Man in his 30s, early 40s, or something like that. And then Baron Munchausen, The Eyes of an Elderly Man. And as someone who has been told has 1 foot in fiction, 1 foot in reality, I love these kind of movies. I love the surrealism. I love how warped it is, how disturbing it can get, how symbolic it can get, and the stories it tells, and how much it makes fun of bureaucracy, what we are today, and like it's a constant battle of fantasy and what is perceived as reality. And I love it because I'm constantly like that. I said to Lee before this, at work, I'm doing so much paperwork. So I think I enjoyed this movie much more than I thought, because I'm in Jonathan Pryce's shoes right now doing all this paperwork. I just want to, we've all been there where you just want to dream and imagine you're a hero, or you're on holiday or something like that. And some of it is, you have some great comedy moments in this and some brilliant actors. I could name some of them. Like, you had Nigel Planer right at the very start from The Young Ones, who is one of the mechanics. Bob Hoskins, Ian Holm in it, Michael Palin, who I never thought could play quite a creepy, evil guy, actually. And I never thought I could see Michael Palin so, like, because that's the beauty of his character. He is everything Jonathan Pryce's character wanted to be. Well, everything that he's not. He's stable. He's got a family, a great job. He's sophisticated. He's charming, but that brings the evil out of him. And he somewhat had that sort of evil sense. I think when you watch it, you sort of get that with him. But I'll go to that later, what I mean by that. But it's a great movie. Like the last movie before this, a dark ending, but it's bleak and dark and sad, but it does make you question a lot of things. And Lee brought something up which has been constantly going in my mind now. Was it all a dream? Has he just constantly been sitting there dreaming it? So, but it's a fantastic artistic movie, and I just had an absolute blast. I definitely want to watch this again. I would recommend this to people. It's basically 1984, but a black comedy version of it. If you've ever read the book or seen the movie with John Hurt, both are brilliant. But this is a black comedy version, and it just makes fun of like things today, even though it's in the future. That's us today, and I love how much it does. you could spot all these things again and again. But yeah, absolutely loved this film. Loved it, loved it, loved it.
Well, I guess Ethan loved it. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did. Before we were doing these cast, mention to Ethan when I sat down to rewatch it again. It makes you think. Was Jonathan
Yep.
Price's character always sat in that chair, and everything what happened from the beginning of the movie to the end was it all in his head? It really makes you think. Or was it reality until then? We do not know. So we'll go over to Susan and Alex. They're in Brazil at the moment, so the connection there. We can hear them clearly. Can you hear us, Susan and Alex?
Hello.
Hello.
We're from the dystopian future. Do you like our nuclear plants? Thank you very much for including us. I have just had my skin stretched. I feel so much younger.
I noticed there's a winged man flying past the
Yes.
power plants there.
Yes. There's a delight in this movie that I can't get over. I would be beside myself, or I'd be really very wrong if I didn't mention that Katherine Hellman is in this. And Alex and I have just been doing a soap rewatch and watching Brazil. We might watch Time Bandits, which Ethan just mentioned, perhaps after we're done with this cast, while we're having pizza tonight. There is a delight in this. She is amazing. She's as weird as she was in Soap. She's as brilliant as she was in Time Bandits. She just nailed it. And Jonathan Pryce and there's a bunch of like levels in their relationship, and you could tell that they went through that, and that was fun. And I like the fact that the Ian Holm character really wants Jonathan Pryce's character to be helpful to him. He doesn't know if he can handle life without that guy, so that was fun, and I enjoy the dynamic between Michael Palin and Jonathan Pryce. That was interesting. I mean, it really was like he really wanted to be the middle management executive, and yet he couldn't be, but yet he had to be, to get the information on the Jill character. Phenomenal. I mean, super phenomenal. And I love the fight scenes and the flying scenes, and I like this movie so much. I like the fact that Ethan said that it's like it's a trilogy of imagination. I like that. And I love Baron Munchausen too. So like this is something that Terry Gilliam he's brilliant at. He's gorgeous at. He just takes these obscure, obtuse sort of things and blows it up. And the way that he made Robert De Niro's character Tuttle was the hero I mean, Tuttle was a superhero in this, and poor Buttle and his wife bore the brunt of all the antics of Tuttle because of a bug, a fly, which had been swatted upon the ceiling. And I feel really bad for that guy and his wife, but this is dystopian future. So, but it's supposedly 10 years ago. I mean, I don't know. Like, that's just the funny thing, is that this movie was supposed to take place 10 years ago. So maybe I missed something in reality. Maybe I didn't. You know.
Maybe we're not real.
Maybe we're not real. But
we're all stuck on chairs.
Yeah. So, and I love the theme song. I love the music in this. The music was amazing as well. And so here's Alex.
Okay, well, I'm gonna sort of be the downer a little bit. No, I don't like the movies per se. I don't think they're brilliant. I think they're very intelligent, and I think they're very visual. But I like Monty Python. I like Monty Python movies. I like John Cleese. I appreciate that Terry Gilliam went to so much work, and I'm sorry that he had a stroke recently and all that. As far as the movie, I'm not sure because it's partially a comedy errors. Then it's dystopian, which is fine. But then they sort of mess it up, and I don't know. I kind of wish they did a final cut, and then the Americans didn't like it as much, and it went over budget and went over time. And I have to admit, it is interesting to see Robert De Niro not play an Italian, not play a mobster.
No, he was the hero.
And
Hero.
And I do like some of the dialogue. I did like Bob Hoskins. I did like what's his name? I forgot his
Nigel
name.
Planer?
No, the guy that was in the suit with everybody following him. The guy that was the original Francis Urquhart, who in reality was a very nice guy.
Richardson.
Oh, Ian Richardson.
Right. He always played villains, but in reality, he was a very, very nice guy. And unfortunately, even though Boston, if you watch the credits, in the House of Cards, the original miniseries, not the new one, with that weirdo Spacey, even though I did like him at first, Ian does a much better job. And he's always been a good actor, even when he's a character actor. So there's a lot of good and there's a lot of interesting ideas. And in a way, Terry was right that everybody, is addicted to their computer screens, in this case, phones, really. So he sort of had the screen right, but he sort of didn't. He's right about the, wanting to be fancy and wanting to be rich. And I thought it was very funny how they had sort of these restaurants where you're sitting down actually eating acid. That was pretty creepy. So some parts he got right, and he did influence people, and he did influence the 1989 version of Batman with the set design and all that. So there's a lot of stuff I do like in this movie, and there's a lot of stuff I don't. I understand the ending isn't going to be super happy because it's also British, but then the Americans wanted to change it.
Oh.
And Terry was fighting a long time and showed the movie illegally, even though it was technically his movie. He didn't have the studio's permission to show the movie. So, in a way, he did break copyright law, actually. So, I don't know. It's an interesting movie, but like I said, I like Monty Python much better. And like I said, I like 1984, but I also like Aldous Huxley. So I think it's also a question of the mixing of the styles. I did like that, Robert De Niro said, we're all in this together. So it's kind of interesting when you think about the dystopian futures, when you think about how popular the Hunger Games it was, and Maze Runner and all that, even though they're trying to do it for teenagers. And what was the other one? The Divergent series or whatever?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, even though they're trying to steal ideas from Terry Gilliam and the Monty Python crew, they don't do it as well. And it's more based on how pretty everything is. And I think that's probably why Katherine Hellman was also in the movie, to show that, and we were actually talking about this today, the plastic people.
Oh my gosh.
How vain everybody is, how greedy everybody is. And we are all in this together, because there's only one planet. We can't all go to the moon. If this doesn't work out, we can't go to the moon. We can't go to Venus. We can't go to Mars.
It's already gone. Space 1999 says it's already gone.
Okay, well, we're not talking about that, but I understand what you're saying. So that's why I like British science fiction, is that it does criticize the society, where in America you sort of have to have like a Dennis Leary, what's the other, George Carlin type of world to even make fun of the the American way. And the American way, while good, also is a tad too optimistic, where there is class warfare and there is, I mean, we were even debating if there even was a middle class anymore, where there still was when this movie was made, and middle management and stuff like that. And I've also worked for a lot of banks, and they do kind of take the soul out of you. You're chained to a desk. You're chained to your job. You're not supposed to want to do anything else. You're not supposed to, regularly say, "Oh, I want to go outside" or whatever. You can do that a couple of times a year, but you're not supposed to do that on a regular basis. You're supposed to be there, devoted to your job, just like an accountant in Britain. You're supposed to be,
Chartered accountancy.
yeah, you're supposed to be crunching the numbers, looking at the numbers all day long. It doesn't matter if you lose your eyesight or whatever. That's your job. So, in some ways, it's right. In other ways, it's not. Probably for America, yeah, it's too grim. It's probably too grim. They probably miss a lot of the jokes. And it's good in a way that the society is slightly different than this. And it's too bad that Terry couldn't have realized the social media thing. So he had the screens right, but just not in the way that you use them.
Well, it was a little
yeah.
surreal, too.
Right. Well, like I said, this was 20 years before it became big.
Steampunk.
Yeah, it is. It is a steampunk influence. But like I said, I kind of wish there had been more characters. It is also creepy that the wife seems to be the woman from Doctor Who Vengeance on Varos.
Yes.
And Time of the Doctor, as well as Clara's grandma. And there was a couple other famous British people as well that you only get to see for like a minute or even less. So yeah, if you're living in a dystopian world where everybody is obsessed with their jobs, devoted to their jobs, they can barely go outside, they can barely enjoy nature. That's very plastic, actually. And also, if you can be in your apartments, which they all look like they're all connected, which is also creepy, and the police or whatever break in, whether it's through the ceiling or whatever, and take people away and chain them up. I mean, that was also very creepy. The fact that they kind of put them in a body bag a little bit.
Yep.
So that was also creepy, even though I thought it was too upsetting when what's his name? Price's character comes back to give her the check. Even though ironically he played a similar character in or obsessed about his job in Tomorrow Never Dies. Another obsessed character. It is kind of creepy that, and she has a right. The character was in pain. Her husband was dead or whatever, missing. And of course she's very upset and doesn't want the check. It sort of also creeped me out when the son practically wanted to kill the Jonathan Pryce character. I understand he's upset, but it was kind of like, wow, where is this going? And speaking of that, how come the fact that the other woman in the movie beside Katherine Hellman didn't really seem to have a lot to do? I mean, she had a character, but it really wasn't fleshed out. So it's kind of interesting how the movie's trying to be extremely critical, extremely dystopian, visually very good. You have a lot of great actors in here. It goes over budget. It goes over filming. The studio's fighting about it. They don't like the ending. I mean, it's all over the place. You know, just like Clue, it has tons of endings as well. So it's kind of interesting how it's not just a cult classic for what it's trying to say. And there were a few American movies that talked about, you know, living in a cubicle and all that. Not too many, but a few.
Not too many.
But yeah, the ending is very downer. It's not really explained what happens and what happens to Robert De Niro's character and a lot of the other characters. So in a way, I'll sort of criticize the movie for that as well, even though it has a great cast.
Well, as it's been mentioned, did any of it really happen? Did Robert De Niro's character really exist? Did Jill really exist? I mean, I've read things that say that Jill was Jonathan Pryce. She didn't exist because she was seen. You know, he saw in the mirror to begin with. He was looking at himself, saw in the mirror, saw on the screen. So even in the store where he was battling with her with the side of the mirror, did she exist, or was he battling within himself? It's so many questions about this movie. Is it a great, you know, dark ending? Not for the Jonathan Pryce character, because he's living it up in his head in Brazil. You know, as I said, was he there all the time? Did he did he know? Did he really know Michael Palin's character, or was it all these people in his head what he'd seen in passing? I mean, it's like the Peter Vaughan character, the man in charge of, you know, the company, the government minister, or whatever he was playing. One minute he's dressed as Santa, and the next minute he's not. I'm sure this all means, for me personally, means that Jonathan Pryce's character was just imagining all these scenarios while he was being while he was in the torture chair. To be honest, I mean, all the imagery of the baby head masks, brilliantly done, creepy. I mean, the scenes where he's the armored winged knight fighting that samurai, brilliantly shot. Because he wanted to be a hero. It is a weird movie. I've got to admit that it is a weird movie. But Terry Gilliam is a weird person, a director. He just goes out there and makes these things and hopes for the best. People will get it. Yeah, I enjoyed it. As you say, it has got many familiar faces, and I'm trying to remember the actor's name. It'll come to me. The plastic surgeon.
Oh, Jim Broadbent.
Jim Broadbent. Yeah, one of his earlier roles, playing the plastic surgeon. Brilliant actor. But all the actors they used were brilliant. I mean, I don't know the actress's name. The old woman who was with Catherine Hellman's friend, who was having plastic surgery done, but she was having it done by someone else, and she was.
Oh.
Her skin was just degrading all the time. That was quite funny. But yeah, I don't know. I know people hate this movie. I know they do, but I don't think they get it. I like it. It makes you think. It does really make you think. And also as well, it's good to see that Terry Gilliam got there first by casting Bob Hoskins as a plumber. You know, before Hollywood did.
But an evil plumber.
True.
Yeah.
That's true. And I'll say it now. What a way to go!
Oh yeah.
Death by poop. Poop. But, yeah, I like it. It's Terry Gilliam's imagination. I mean, I've said this in other casts before. There's several directors what are up there. For me, the Spielberg and Gilliam's up there as well, and Tim Burton. Those are like the three, the Holy Ghost, the trilogy for me. Those three: Spielberg, Gilliam, and Burton. They use their imagination so well. Yeah, it was good to sit down and watch this. As I was saying to Ethan before we did, it must be 20 years, 15 to 20 years since I saw Brazil. It was good. It's good to sit down and dust the DVD out and watch it. So we'll go to favourite moments or things what made you go ooh. So Ethan, things that made you go ooh.
Well,
there's a song somewhere in there. Things that made you ooh.
Well, two things actually. Now that you mentioned ooh, I was going to get to this. Michael Palin's character originally, this role, Robert De Niro had read the script and he wanted to play this role, but it was Terry Gilliam who said, "Oh no, Michael Palin, I really want to play this role." And I think because everybody knew he's quite funny and stuff, but I've never seen him his evolution. He seems like such a nice guy. And because I was saying, you see, there's something evil about him. He seems nice. But when you work out what his job is, when he's goes back to Jonathan Pryce's character, he seems twitching, and you're like, who is that? He takes the mask off and it's him. And you're like, what the hell's his job? I see the blood. I'm thinking, oh no, this ain't good. And by the end, the baby face, and he's going to, torture him, and you see what he does. I thought, you evil.
Yeah, well,
it was so creepy. I never thought Michael Palin would creep me out so much.
That's what makes me think personally that it was all imagined all the way through, because he was imagining things what he was seeing while he was in that chair, when he was wearing the baby mask. That's where these images of the baby faces were coming into his dream. That was me personally.
Yeah.
But let me posit this. Like so many other directors, they like to take these pure, innocent actors, these actors who you're like, oh, this one's the good guy all the time, forever. This one's the greatest one and the nicest person ever, and flip him on his head. I mean, what's his name? Blake did it with Julie, or excuse me, Blake Edwards did it with Julie, his wife, many times.
I was going to say, are we talking SOB there?
Yeah, and the other ones, there was about 4 other movies that he just made. He turned her into such a tart, and so I mean, it's like these and because Terry Gilliam was so intimate with Michael Palin, much like Blake was intimate with Julie, I just thought that anyway, that's what it is.
Trying to think of other favorite bits. I think all the dream bits, as Leah's already mentioned, beautifully done. I mean, the whole sets, with the samurai, the babies, the people in chains, and I think there was one bit where there's a rock monster. I mean, it's quite cartoony, but at the same time, it's disturbing, but really, really beautiful to look at the same time, if that makes any sense. So well done. And you could tell it's Terry Gilliam's style. You've seen in many of his films and stuff like that, but very, very well done. Very well done. And again, this is bringing back to that whole theory, was it all a dream? Robert De Niro's character was great. Every time he appeared, it was just brilliant. But the closer it got to the end, I did actually think something doesn't seem right, because he was depicted like a full-on superhero. Every time he would fly, it was like Batman, basically, like, I've just saved you. I'm off to Gotham. And it seemed very superhero-like. And I was thinking, that seems a bit too fantasy. So now, because we mentioned this, it's like, he's depicting a hero coming to save him, who's very superhero-like for a handyman. He was great. It had some great black comedy moments in it as well, like the plastic surgery, which obviously makes fun of people today. Plastic surgery, they constantly use plastic surgery to the point they look god ugly. And of course, that woman, she's like, oh, I'm getting different plastic surgery. And then the next point, what happened to you? There was a complication. Comes back and she's just about like that. And I'm like, what happened now? A complication on a complication. And she's at the point she sounds like a Monty Python character. And then by the end, she's in the funeral, and all that's left is like blood and guts
and bones
and jelly.
Yeah.
That was quite funny. And there was a bit with Ian Richardson's character, who's his new boss. I really liked this, where Jonathan Pryce's character gets to the place and it's empty. He's like looking around and he hears all the talking and they go like, but there's music playing. So every time these guys appear, it's the same nice music that's playing and playing if you listen. And it plays like every time they appear, it's like acting the same music. So you think, is one of them got a box like playing the same music? And it's just subtle things like that where it just makes fun of like this, they're acting the same way. And he's going, oh, you say, yes, sir, yes, sir. And it's playing this music. And if you listen like when they first appear in the far distance, it's the same music. Every time they go back, and then it stops. Then they come back, the music plays again. It's just subtle things like that and symbolisms and stuff. Like there was one bit where Jonathan Pryce is talking to Jack, I think it was, Michael Palin's character. And there's a bit where I knew this was coming. It's something where he stands up and there's the big poster behind him. It says, who do you trust? And he says, come on, you can trust me, Jack. You can give me the files. And that's when I thought, oh no, this is going to go wrong.
You see, all the answers are there.
Yeah. And I love
the answers there on the screen, and they're asking, who, it's, and once you start thinking about it, it's just across the screen there, and it's straight in front of you.
Mm-hmm. Because there were certain signs, and you see, and they're saying like, it says these signs like these 1950s style posters saying these things, and then they say something that coincides with that poster. Brilliantly done. I love symbolism like that, and that's when you think, what is going on here? Trying to think of other moments. The running Joe with Bob Hoskins' character was great, and that was bloody great. It's already been mentioned how they get killed was hilariously done. But it's like every time he talks, his partner says the exact same thing. So they're copying what they say and stuff. And even like when Jonathan Pryce's character said something, I think it was like, do you have a stroke 9? I can't remember the number. And the partner starts shaking and Bob Hoskins gets a wrench and whacks him. He just whacks him and you think, where did that come from? Go, no, you're bloody done. Again, all the cameos. Gordon Kay from Allo Allo.
Yeah.
He appeared. And there was another actor as well. Lee will know what I'm talking about here. Oh, he was in a movie called The Early Bird.
I'm racking my brains now.
I know. I'm trying to remember because Brian Pringle.
Yes.
Brian Pringle.
A good TV character actor in his later years.
Yeah. And I was trying to remember him because I thought he looked so familiar. So I had to wait for the cast.
Yeah,
and
played the D.
Yeah, because he was one of the villains in a film called The Early Bird, which is a comedy movie, which probably not well known in America, but over here we know it's Norman Wisdom. But again, I think the whole finale was great. And you sort of see it coming. It starts off like quite a realistic chase, oh, they're coming to save the day. But then it gets a bit surreal, like the paper wrapping around Robert De Niro, and he's gone. And I thought, he's not out of there, is he? And of course, Oh, I think. Oh, he's a lost cause. Yes, I think he's a goner. And it's kind of a bleak ending, but as Lee said, he's living it up there in the fantasy world. But to me, it's a good science fiction 1984 styled ending. You know, they've done it before with science fiction films, but it's a great, so many great parts. I think I've said my part. That's all the bits. I probably missed them out, but over to you guys.
There's so much happening in the movie, so yeah, we'll allow you to forget things. Susan and Alex, what you've got to say?
All right. Well, the brilliant ending for Robert De Niro's character. Here's a superhero that gets completely subsumed by paperwork, by forms and facts and figures, and just it was like, you know, that makes you want to stick it to the man. The other favorite point is I love the chase scene with the lorry and their future home on the back of the lorry, and she is responsible to pick that up and carry it someplace. But he gets in, and instead of letting her do her job, he takes over and basically crashes it. And then when she stops to pick up a package, he thinks it's a bomb. And so not only is it a chase scene with the cops, it's a chase scene with the cops with a bomb that isn't a bomb, but there is a bomb later on. It's just, the richness is just amazing. And those poster boards with scenes from idyllic scenes from life around the world, beautiful imagery, and then on the other side is just, you know, desolation. So I mean, like, that was really cool too. And I must say I appreciate the joy of Katherine Hellman and her friends' characters about plastic surgery. I just thought that they were enjoying that far too much, far more than anybody I ever knew. I mean, you see people like Pete Burns who got his lips done so big that they were like, you know, bigger than his nose. And, you know, some people like that get really excited about plastic surgery, but, you know, this was just fun. And I love it when they break into his mom's house and finally were able to go to bed together, and that was fun. I mean, they had like a fairy tale romantic and of that day, and that was super cool. So and he catches her in a wig with lingerie, and she looks just like she did in the dream. So that's how I know, that's how I think I've figured out that it wasn't all in his mind, because otherwise she wouldn't be so butch when he saw her. I mean, her butchness was more in line with the reality of the situation in the dystopian future. But, you know, when he finally gets her alone, she's able to, you know, do whatever. And so, yeah, that's my...
Okay, well, as I said, I'm not a big fan of this movie. I understand, like I said, I worked for banks. I understand they love paperwork, and that's part of their job, and I'm sorry that their paperwork...
Robert De Niro?
Okay, well, anyway, like I said, I understand that the job's boring. I understand that the job's tedious. Unfortunately, Jonathan Pryce did have a possibility of leaving, and he didn't do that. So you kind of wonder if it's schizophrenia. You're kind of wondering if he's stuck there and he just doesn't have the guts to say, I'll be one of the homeless or one of the unwashed and be my own person. And you kind of get the feeling that he wants to be, but he just doesn't have the guts. And unfortunately, it was also interesting, not only of all the screens and the guy that he was trying to help and do favors for, and then he drives over to the widow's apartment and his car is set on fire and all these other things. But, the fact that, Michael Palin's character seems like a very middle class kind of guy, but he isn't because he can't even remember his own daughter's names. So I understand that, some jobs do kind of, especially if you're not careful, you either spend too much time at them and you start losing a little bit of personality. And I think that's part of the schizophrenia too, is that he was so bored and he hated the job so much that he went daydreaming. So in a way it's dystopian and it isn't. I mean, they have it in Bill and Ted, they have it in Blade Runner, they have it in Sleeper. There's a lot of other movies where they've kind of hinted that, society is messed up and you really shouldn't follow, what they're saying and what they're doing. But at the same point, everybody can't be an iconoclast either. And you can't really have a society if everybody doesn't follow anybody else or any other type of group either. So I think that's where the confusion comes from. Plus, I'd love to see the unedited version. I think there's like 5 unofficial versions, and I'd love to see the whole thing just to see if I missed anything. But at the same point, while I understand in a way what they're saying, that, and they did this in Monty Python as well, the accountant that wanted to be a lion tamer, even though he didn't know what he was doing and he had no way of doing it and all that. And then you have the Ministry of Silly Walks and all that. I think there's probably too many cooks in this particular broth. I understand what Terry was saying, and it is sort of the Monty Python school. And I understand about people being too devoted to technology and too devoted to their jobs and too devoted to style, like Katherine Hellman and her friends. I mean, they barely looked human. They just looked like skeletons wrapped in skin. They didn't even look human anymore. So of course you can take any theory, you can take any philosophy, you can take any job and take it to too much of an extreme. And I think that's also why the dystopian works so well, because obviously you have to have a government, but you don't want a government that you're a slave to a job. And there's a lot of countries that are still like that you're a slave to a job. It's tied up with money, and unless you're going to do everything from the bottom up and build yourself up all by yourself, yeah, it's a creepy thought. It is. But at the same point, he hopefully, but I guess not in this movie, hopefully he could have left, but he didn't, and he took the easy way out. But I think deep down his mind, he wanted to vacation. I think he wanted to be, I think he wanted to be more of a hippie than he wanted to admit to. So unfortunately, because the job is so tedious and boring and it's so constrained and all that, we were even talking about that today. That not everybody's built to spend 25 years in school and stay at the same. As a matter of fact, a lot of companies don't even do that anymore. You're actually not allowed to be around for 20 years because they don't want to pay you the money. uh, you know. So it was an interesting warning sign, and like I said, there has been other movies that have hinted at maybe it's not so good to never question society and never question groups, and just do something for because of age and because of your job and stuff like that. But somehow I don't know. I mean, the characters aren't that strong. The dialogue is kind of strong, and I like it visually, and it has some interesting concepts, and it has some interesting ideas and scenes, but it does seem more like a daydream or a nightmare, or maybe someone who's just too bored at their job. So if they could have made it slightly more of a point, but that's the thing. I don't know how much. I know Terry Gilliam is there, but I don't know how much the American studio might have retooled it. Because I know that they did not like the downer ending. They didn't. That's not an American ending with him sitting there in a daydream in a chair forever. That's the American. No, the Americans wouldn't want it that way. Of course, the other problem is they could still be zombies. It's just for the Super Bowl. So that's the other. If you turn the coin on its head, for instance, you guys know Fry and Laurie. Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie. And they actually had a joke that somebody was so suburban and so busy watching a football game that they had to put a hose in their sofa so they could go to the bathroom. They were too lazy to even go up and walk to the bathroom and do their business. And Dennis Leary even said that. The American comic said, America, people are getting so lazy, you might as well have a toilet right in the car. So, you don't have to move. So, it's kind of interesting how, in a way, the same school of pessimism eventually comes, full circle.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We'll have to paint that toilet in the sofa. Yeah, what can we say? I mean, we've gone through all the things. I think one part what did make me just sort of giggle was when Michael Palin's character gave Jonathan Pryce's character a suit to wear, and the little daughter went.
Yeah, that bit was great.
The little daughter said, "What was it? Don't be shy. I won't look at you, Willie."
It was almost like something like she must have heard from her mum or something.
Something like that. And I'm thinking, wow.
You're like, wow, what have you been hearing?
Yeah. That just made me, giggle away. It is a dark movie, but it has got humour spreaded about in it, and fantastic scenery, and I can't really knock it. It's what it is. It's Gilliam. It's got Gilliam written all over it, and he does what he does best, and I love him for it. I can't argue with it. I mean, some people just don't get the way he works. I'm afraid, and some of those people are usually the filmmakers, the Hollywood studios. I mean, he does have problems trying to get movies finished or off the ground.
I know, and that's just a waste.
It is. I mean, how many years has the Don Quixote movie taken?
Oh, I know, but they finally finished it.
Praise
the Lord.
With Jonathan Pryce in it as well.
All right.
I mean, I know stars have come and gone in that movie because it's taken so long for him to get it off the ground, get it filmed, get it out there. The casts have just changed every few years, but thankfully he's got that movie out now. But it's just a shame that the film studios always build a brick wall in front of every project he does, and it's just a shame.
Because they're not imaginative.
Maybe it's because he's an expat.
I just don't know. I mean, I think film studios like to play safe, but you shouldn't. You
should go the distance.
You should take the movie by the scruff of the neck.
Mm-hmm.
And go for it. Don't play safe. Just go for what you believe in. Go for it. And Gilliam tries to do that, and they're trying to stop it every turn he makes, and it's so annoying.
Yep, I agree.
But once he gets a movie out there, you think, why don't they back him all the time? Because look at what he has produced over the years. Say Brazil, for example. You've got to have pure imagination for that. What was that, Willy Wonka? Pure imagination.
Pure imagination.
Copyright strike. Nobody watches these. Susan's face.
Well, I mean, again, I've debated this here and also in my Facebook groups as well. I mean, obviously, that's the other question, because we're talking about before the days where everything had to be 800 million and make $1 billion to even begin to break even. And remember, this is only one movie we're talking about.
Oh yeah.
And right, but what I'm saying is, back in the old days, the 30s, 40s, 50s, yeah, they did make $1 million movies. I'm not going to lie and say that, but they weren't 800 million for one movie. I mean, do you understand how not every movie can be a Star Wars too. And they criticized him for that as well when that director made it. So I think it's also the fact of they waste all this money on marketing it, which they couldn't market Brazil because it's a very surreal movie. They didn't know how to advertise it because the trailers were massively unpleasant. The studios are spending millions of dollars. Who knows how many investors they have. I'm also following a group on Facebook where they're mentioning how many fraud studios now are actually getting convicted for committing fraud and stuff for any movie, not just one or two movies, but for any movie. So there's actually 10 studios that have been taken out of business because they were committing fraud to just make 5 movies. So it's amazing in a way that Terry's actually right, but he's not popular. But he's a genius. But again, he's not popular, but he is, but he isn't. So they're all over the place where they should be. Tell a story, make a movie, see how it goes. Don't make 10,000 remakes and 10,000 copycats. And they don't learn the lesson. A lot of the studios don't. They just don't.
They just don't like to take the plunge. They like to stay mainstream, which you shouldn't do. Movie making or TV making, you've got to be diverse. And if you're not diverse and you just go down one line of filmmaking, you get bored. I mean, it's happening now. It's been happening for the last sort of 10 years in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
Every movie nowadays, what gets released, it's a superhero movie, it's this, that, the other. That's all it is these days. Nobody is been showing diversity now.
Yeah.
Diversity for me is Terry Gilliam. He knows diversity really well.
Like you said, you got to take it by the scruff of the neck. I was going to say, be ballsy, take it by the balls, and just give the world a shock and a change of magic.
Yeah, this is it. Why do these companies feel the need to be the same as every other movie? It's just, I don't know. I mean, this is why I don't go to cinema anymore, because what is there to go to cinema for? Nothing. Same old. I mean, how many movies this year we're having superhero movies? I don't know. It's I think movie making is in a bad way. You don't get out of this rut now. I just can't see no good outcome of it.
No.
Well, again, I mean, that's the ironic part, is that there were movies that were made for millions of dollars. There were, but there wasn't 800 million. And it wasn't the same way. It didn't have to be the same actors, the same character, the same formula, the same. And that's the problem, is that just like a TV network, they say, well, this comedy worked, so now we're going to make 10,000 copycat versions of that. Yeah. I remember when I was a kid, I used to watch movies and TV shows going, ooh, what is this? What can I find out about it? Now it's like, there's no point in finding out about it now, because most of the story. Yeah. I mean, and the trailers give away stuff now too. So it's not like before where it was totally new, it was totally novel, you weren't going to see it everywhere, but now they want a safe bet, they want money back on the dollar, so they don't make things that are, really different unless it's a really cheesy, concept. And that's the thing. It was before there, and there was also styles as well. So some styles you knew you were going to see, very similar. But now there's almost no novelty to it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I don't know how But thank God for people like Gilliam and his imagination.
Mhm.
That's what I've got to say. We need more people like him.
Yeah.
Get out there and make movies and show these people there is other ways of making movies. I don't know. Right, what are we doing? Oh yeah, final say and score, shall we? Oh, we like a good debate. Alex D'Souza, final say and score on Brazil.
All right. Well, I love this. I'm gonna be sad that Catherine Hellman is gone. I will probably end up buying this all over again, and so I'll give this a 10.9 desks that are sliding under through a wall shared by two office members.
I forgot about them scenes. Yeah.
Well, like I said, the idea's there, the casting was there. I'm just wondering how they cut the movie or whatever, or how much they left out. But one thing you have to admit, it's definitely not a typical Hollywood movie. You definitely have to admit that. And the cast is good. Yeah, so it's a good idea. It's a good universe in a way that you don't see it all everywhere. And it has a great cast. And just kind of wondering about the story and the editing of scenes and stuff like that. But again, it is not a typical movie. It's not a movie you just go, oh, I forgot about it. It's very predictable. It's not like that. It's not like that. So for that, I'll give this a 8. But like I said, I wish I could have a sort of a knowledge of how much was edited or changed or whatever. And that's the other thing too. A lot of directors admit that a lot of studios, even if they're making movies, they edit a lot out or they try to put too much influence on it.
Yeah, you definitely, once you've seen Brazil, you don't forget this movie. Ethan.
Well, for in a way, I suppose, because I've seen it before, like I said, years and years ago, but I felt like watching this the first time again. But such great imagination, music, characters, and brilliant thinking, and something we, I suppose, can relate to, imagination and all this, and someone who does it all the time. I am going to give this a solid 10 out of 10, just for such brilliant writing and style and topics and satire. It's got everything for a Terry Gilliam movie. So 10 out of 10 for Terry Gilliam.
Well, which way do I go? Which way do I go? That way or that way? Anything what Terry Gilliam does brings a smile to my face. I enjoy it. As I said, I wish he got acknowledged more by his peers. It's going to be a 10. It is. It's going to be a 10. I'm not going to go over a 10. I'll leave them to Susan. Susan can go over the 10s.
My
10.
surreal scores.
But no, it's as Alex says, it's a movie you won't forget. You don't forget this sort of movie, and I wish there was more movies like this where it sticks in your head. Because most movies these days, straight over, just wash over you. So yeah, it's a 10 from me. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining us, talking Gilliam and Brazil. We enjoyed it today.
Brazil.
Copyright strike. If you guys out there like this, leave a comment or if you've got a suggestion how we can make these casts better, I mean, we can get rid of Ethan straight away. I mean, look, we've got rid of Alid. Way! I'm going back. Don't you worry about that. I think he's in London with a placard at the moment, going up and down Downing Street. But we won't talk about that. Yeah. If you want to join us.
Methinks he doth protest enough.
Yeah, well, he's not going to change things. If you want to join us, just get in touch. You know, we're quite friendly. We don't bite that much. Well, I nibble a bit, but don't bite. But apart from that, I think it's time we leave you with Susan's rendition, the 12-inch version of Brazil. Over to you, Susan.
Brazil. Brazil.
Folks.